the Force, Luke.
Because sometimes truth isn't good enough.
I feel the need for speed.
Hi, I'm Chucky,
Because it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
It's Wednesday, and you know what that means, boys and girls. It's FrostCast. Let's bring in King Z. We can't waste any time today. I gave him an overloaded schedule with loads of topics that we're going to roll through. And I even changed the subject of the show within 12 hours. It was going to be Christmas movies. We're going to do those next week. I know it's less, that's what I'm saying. We're going to do our Christmas movies in a week. We wanted to get it close to the holiday because there's enough newsworthy kind of stuff going around that I figured I'd pick King Z's brain on a bunch of different things. Big news right off the rip on the thumbnail. It looked like it was going to happen, and it looked like it wasn't going to happen. Now it's officially happening. Cavill's getting his Warhammer 40K series over there at Amazon. Big round of applause for the king of nerds. It didn't look like he was ever going to catch a W, but we're not out of the woods yet, I would say. Like, it's green lit. It's doing its thing, but who knows where Amazon forces it to go, like Netflix did to him over at The Witcher. So, I mean, who knows? But just for starters, dude, are you excited that the guy's finally getting a shot at the title? I'm thinking it's the title for him.
I think it's going to be huge because this is something that he's wanted, he's fought for, and now he's got. And like, he pretty much put it on his back and carried it across the finish line. Because what was the holdup is before Amazon could shoot anything, they had to agree on what they were going to talk about and what story parameters based on game parameters they were going to use. And they had to have this deal in place before December 22nd, or the rights would be null and void, and it would go back out for bidding again. So Amazon would lose their rights to making the show. So to get it done right, Cavill, being the Superman that he is, put the thing on his back. He represented, was it GameWorks? Games
Workshop is the
publisher. Games Workshop. He worked with them to get the deal done, and they got it signed. I wouldn't say the 11th hour, but maybe 9:30.
Dude, it's after breakfast, man. It's for sure after breakfast. I mean, I couldn't be more excited for this guy. Honestly, it's not like I know him or anything like that. You got to be excited for a guy that A, is into the craft, right? B, is into the IPs that he likes to work on, and C, actually has like a set on him to stick to the guns and literally walk away when like you put in your best effort and they're like, nah, dog, we're going to take it in a different direction. We're looking at you, Witcher. Okay. We're looking at you. It's your fault. Nobody watches your show. It's not Cavill's fault. He's not a prima donna. The only person that ever said that were people out of Netflix, that one show, that one time. It's never been said anywhere else. Right.
No,
he's a good guy.
Love working with him.
Right. People like him. He's not quite Keanu Reeves or anything like that, but people like the guy. And I'm real sick and tired of seeing him get jerked around and then to get dunked on for picking like other crap movies to be in, like Argyle. You know what I mean? Like, all right, the agent sold him a bad bill of goods on that one. No, he's perfect.
Argyle wasn't that bad, and I think his role in it was pretty spot on.
It was overstated, and they falsely marketed that movie. So maybe he wasn't bad, but again, he's taken all the baggage for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did. He took a big hit on that one.
But it's funny that we can see where the overlap in the Witcher series and something like Warhammer 40K or something like Fallout could have happened, because we've said this before on the channel. Amazon is a tale of two studios completely. The same crew that puts out Rings of Power puts out what did we just say?
Fallout,
right? One critically acclaimed, overwhelmingly positive, reviewed by all spheres on the internet. And then, of course, Rings of Power has its supporters, its defenders. It allegedly has people that watch it. And you'll notice I drew a distinction between supporters, defenders, and actual viewers, because that number has trajectoried itself right down into oblivion. Like, let's be honest, it's not a good show. I'm sorry. You can enjoy whatever you want to enjoy, people. King Z and I will never, Scout's honor, never tell you what you can or can. We might tell you what you shouldn't watch, but we don't expect you to listen to us and just fall in line. Go like what you want to like. I'm sure somebody out there liked Ahsoka. It wasn't King Z. I guarantee you that. Definitely not. But I like seeing Cavill catch the victory here. It makes me feel good that because he got himself in a spot where not only is he in the show, but he's got that executive producer role. Like he's going to have some swing, probably more than he ever had at Netflix with The Witcher.
Yeah, he's going to have, I believe, more influence in the creative process of this than he has in other projects. Like I saw a reel of him the other day where he's talked about, he's like, I am a nice guy, but I'm the most difficult guy on set because I'm like, no, that's not how it should be. I should be doing this. It's like, this isn't how things should be done. I should be doing it this way because he knows the source material because he's a huge fan of it. We're talking about a man who almost missed his audition to be Superman because he had a Raiden.
He had a Raiden. Wow. Dude, you're exactly right. But see, that to me in my head, right, that's being a consummate professional where you have standards, where you couple that with your love of the IP and you're not willing to make every compromise. Being a prima donna is like, King, you brought me the wrong bottled water. That's prima donna shit. You know what I mean? I asked for my steak medium, you brought it medium well. Right. You're showing up late. You're showing up drunk. You're bringing people that don't need to be on set that are causing distractions. You're bringing your entourage, your girlfriend, your wife, your kids. But if that's prima donna shit.
We're looking at you, Dwayne.
Saying 50 million for Red One. Really? 50? 50? All right, Black Adam, take it down a peg. Right? But that's what I'm saying. And this dude's been around, like, you know how old Man of Steel is now? Man of Steel is like 15 years old, right? If these stories were out there in an era of 24/7 social media, we'd know if this dude was a dickweed or not. And it's never been said.
No.
You know what I mean? There's no pedo greedo allegations. There's none of that stuff. There's no substance abuse issues that anybody's ever accused him of. He's never laid his hands on anybody. But for some reason, this dude just can't catch a break. It's kind of sad, you know?
And it goes into his passion for his craft as well as the project that he's working on. So, but hats off to him for getting this job done. Now, they didn't give out any more information on where they're going with it, what they actually agreed on. So there's so much that they could dive into in this IP. I mean, when I was looking up the books for Warhammer 40K,
40 of them?
Yeah, there's so many books, and it's like you could tell any story. Now, everyone says that you should start with the horse up.
With Horse.
Yeah, Horse Uprising as a jump on point to understand where everything is. But the lore is so deep and so long. I think it was like almost a 2-hour video. Someone was breaking down the lore of Warhammer 40K. So there's so much they can dig into. Yeah.
And that was likely just the intro to what you need to know to get started kind of video. And it was a 2-hour long essay. That's crazy. Dude, I'm glad you mentioned about the lore, though, because I wanted to just talk briefly on this subject about, I think the sticking point that I said to you offline that's kind of been out there in the rounds for that show is that Games Workshop initially looked like they were going to bend to some alleged public pressure that they wanted to add a female Custodes faction, which has never been a thing. In fact, the lore is set up, to my understanding, to why women can't be those kind of soldiers. And it's not just because we don't think women can fight for the Imperium or whatever. It's literally, there's physical reasons within their DNA and their bodies that don't support the enhancements and the upgrades. It would kill them. Like the process would kill them. And that's always been deep grained into the lore. So it sounded for a hot minute like this whole thing was going to get scrapped because maybe they were going to buckle. Because, you know, tabletop gaming's in a rough space economically these days. Games Workshop is in the same boat pretty much as like Wizards of the Coast is with D&D. Some of these books and products are very expensive. It's not a cheap hobby to get into. Some of these models are hundreds of dollars. It's very time consuming. So your niche audience that's down and rides out with you expects a certain level of consistency and respect.
And they
didn't think they were going to get that.
Yeah, as the Warhammer game was explained to me, it's 45 minutes of setup for 5 minutes of play.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like it's like it's a duel. You gotta plan it out from the night before, and then you take your 10 paces and shoot. Yeah, and like that's a wrap. That's crazy. But dude, hats off to Cavill. I'm glad he got one. Hopefully this show gets made and it doesn't get derailed later. You know, green light doesn't mean like the check's been signed. You know what I mean? Like
no, now they go into them to start. They have the permission to start writing and creating something without having to worry about getting copyright because now that's been signed.
Cool. Dude, topic number 2, we're going to keep it moving. Rapid fire lightning round. So you heard RDJ was back about 4 or 5 months ago. He's going to come back, save the MCU, because who do you go to besides the guy that started the MCU for you? I know Blade was out there. I know the Fox movies did their thing, but RDJ
started the MCU.
Is the MCU, right?
Yeah. Those were Fox universe.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, superhero movies in general, like we get they were all there, but RDJ Iron Man 1 was the start. So we knew that's a thing. He's coming back as Doom in some capacity. It has obviously the details are fleet and scant, and grains of salt for everybody in your stockings this year, please. But the next big rumor out of these guys, very predictable if you've been around, because we've talked about the implications of multiverse thousands of times. Chris Evans returning to the MCU, I believe confirmed. I don't have the article in front of me, but I don't think it's existing in rumor space. I think this is legit.
I think
it was in Variety.
When they brought RDJ back, one of the things the Russo brothers says that they don't want to go forward without Evans as well, but they didn't want to have a big announcement for it. They were going to try to keep it under wraps and surprise everybody. But Disney's lockdown on information when it comes to Marvel stuff has kind of got a couple cracks in it now, and some things are leaking, and it's leaked out that Chris Evans possibly to be reprising his role as Captain America, but not the Captain America you and me know.
And here's the problem. Herein lies the rub. So listen, you can get away with bringing back RDJ to be Doom in a costume. I don't want evil Tony Stark is Doom in a costume. So we'll see what they do with that. But you know what I don't want more than that? Nazi Cap. Don't want it. In 2025, 26, 27, I don't want it. And if they're bringing me the Hail Hydra Captain America, and stuff that shit in a sack and take it back. I don't want it. I'm over it. If Chris Evans isn't getting in the gym and getting re-dieselized, because he's put on a couple, he's also almost 50. No, whatever. Yeah. Saying happens. If they're not bringing him back to literally be Steve Rogers, Captain America, and then hopefully have a scene where Anthony Mackie's like, nah, dog, you can have it back. Like, I'm here for that. I need that. And that's that course correction that I think people are into. Like we were talking earlier about Skeleton Crew and just re-earning trust and respect. Do right by the characters and sadly, the commodities people have come to know and enjoy. They know what they're getting is what they're paying what they're getting. They know exactly what's on the line. That's what people want. I don't want weirdo version of Captain America where he takes the serum but becomes a villain. He was actually Hydra all along. He's married to his dad or some weird shit. Like, stop. Just be Steve Rogers. That's what I need.
And I do believe I didn't actually read the whole. I read the first 2 comics of that run. Mm-hmm. But I believe there is a redemption arc in there at the end where he comes back to being Captain. The whole thing was that he was Hydra as an undercover agent, and that's why he had to play it out as a Hydra agent.
Oh, dude, that's a classic sci-fi fantasy trope thing. We did. G.I. Joe had one where Duke was mind controlled. The Thundercats have done that. You know, all Transformers had evil Optimus in a cartoon somewhere. I'm sure it's something you do. But what I'm saying now is I don't need the optics of it present day anymore. Like much like they've overspent, they've overplayed their hand with the girl boss trope. I don't need evil deconstructed version of my heroes trope either. Like I need another 10 years where that's not the thing, where then they can do the whole, oh no, Jean-Luc Picard really, he was Borg, but like he came back. Like, because I can't handle that anymore. Like I'm over it. Like I'm so sick to death tired having these characters dragged through the mug. You can call it the TLJ effect. We should probably just trademark that, get on a t-shirt. Like I'm over that for a while. So if Evans is coming back, it needs to be as Steve Rogers, Captain America in whatever universe he can fight alongside Captain Falcon. That's cool. I'd be down for that.
Because he still has the serum, he could come back as Old Man Rogers and the new head of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Good. That's an interesting take. And you know, that's a little bit of inside possible rumor baseball. Put a pin in that. That might be your best inside rumor guess prediction yet. But the other attachment on this particular part of the story is that rumors, and this is all rumors, and I don't have any article to back that. I just saw what I saw elsewhere looking around. Anthony Mackie might be upset with this potential rumor and or decision on their part. How would you feel if you were Mackie in this situation here? You've been cast to be Captain America. You got a show. No one's really bought onto it. No one's calling you Captain. Your merchandise still says Falcon on it. Like, what do you think?
Am I still getting a paycheck?
That's what I would think. But I mean, does the Hollywood ego let you get away with that?
I mean, that's why they got rid of Terrence Howard, because the ego got in the way.
That's true. His hustled and goed. You know what I mean? That's it was a whole different ballgame there. But I don't know, man. If you've been, I feel like I was jerked around at this point. if I was Mackie and be like, oh, so you took the shield over, you got a show, it didn't work out so good.
And he has a movie coming out. And I think the whole purpose of the movie is what I'm hearing is that the president, played by Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross, is trying to build a new Avengers team with him leading it, but he didn't have the clout to bring the people together, and that's why the Thunderbolts asterisk come into
and it is the asterisk.
It is the asterisk there. Come into existence.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel, on the one hand, I feel a little bit bad to be like Mackie in his position, because I don't remember, dude. I live almost chronically online when I'm bored between work-related stuff. I don't remember him ever coming out and dunking on anybody for being critical of him getting the shield. I don't remember the hastily deleted tweets, you know, that like he wrote one morning at 2 a.m. They're like, oh, I'm Captain America, and that's just how it's going to, you know, or things worse. I mean, you know how it is.
I think he's doing a fine job as Captain American Falcon, which is a character in the MCU. I think he's handling it quite well, but Captain does come back and he does relinquish the shield, because it goes Steve Rogers, Bucky, back to Steve Rogers, to Falcon, back to Bucky, back to Rogers.
Listen, I get that the mantle bounces around like the shield thrown amongst a few Hydra guys, like clink, 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 clink. I get that. But you know what I think the problem with the modern superhero stuff that we're getting now, not the beginning, like we're modern now. Like the beginning of the MCU phase 1 is no longer modern. You know, that's long enough ago that it's like then. The problem is we've seen these people now consistently leapfrog important things that happened in timelines and in canon to get to other things for potentially nefarious motivations. And I think that's the part that chaps some people's ass, right or wrong. And I think Mackie might have been caught up in that. And though, cool, we got a scene at the end of the movie where Steve hands me the shield. What does dude know? You know, like he's doing a job. I don't begrudge him for making $11 million to do a job. I'd do it. I'm like, I'm going to take the shield and bend it in half. Okay. But yeah, that's doing the job. The other 80 billion people that have to watch this movie probably aren't cool with that. And that's why they object that Bucky didn't get the end of the redemption arc. And Sam got the shield when he was already kind of a dope character on his own that he didn't need the redemption. Like the mantle didn't need to be passed that way. And it just seems like politically it was for reasons of the day. You know?
I honestly, they stayed away from a lot of the political reasons.
Oh yeah.
In the MCU, I do believe it was just because he was a prominent figure during the Hydra Captain America. Both Captain America Falcon and Captain America Steve Rogers existed in the same universe. So I think it's just following that storyline of the progression of Falcon.
Cool. Could be. I get a little bit more conspiratorial with these kind of things, but I would hope it's something more like your take than something like too many white guys on this team. We need to diversify. But I'm like, you're overlooking the best part. Like the Avengers, the X-Men, X-Force, all these teams, they were already crazy, stupid, diverse, and everybody loved it. You know, we didn't need any extra help. We didn't need you to pad the stats. Like Falcon was already okay. Like he was already pretty cool. He had a great introduction when he's running and Steve Rogers passes by him and we get his backstory and he gets hooked up with the gear on your dude. And dude, the ultimate in setup and payoff. The ultimate in setup and payoff to this day is on your left. Man.
Yeah,
I still love that shit. That's the best. Can you hear me? It's Sam, dude. That's chills, dude. Best part of that movie. Even better than him picking up the hammer. It was better. That was it. But we'll see what happens. I guess we'll see how that plays out. Maybe he will be old man captain. I like that actually. I wouldn't mind that. That could work.
Like he's trying to set it right after the Thunderbolt debacle, which I think the Thunderbolt's trying to solve a mission kind of like a suicide type squad.
Yeah.
But after their debacle, he comes in to right the ship and rebuild S.H.I.E.L.D. in Nick Fury's image as old man Rogers in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I'd be down for that. Then let me ask you this before we go on to the next topic. Would you have had any interest in Chris Evans coming back, being de-aged if they felt they needed to knock a few years off to get him a little younger, a little tighter? Would you have wanted to have seen that movie that was just about him returning the stones from the gauntlet after Endgame? Because that got kicked around. I know it was only ever a rumor. It was never proposed. It never ended up on the coming soon Marvel board. What do you think of that idea?
I think that was the proper send-off for Cap if you were never going to use him again. I think that was the proper
the
send
ultimate
off.
retirement.
Yep.
I don't know. Could you actually get a movie done where he's putting back 6 stones in a movie? Because I definitely don't think you carry a trilogy like that. You shouldn't. I mean, maybe half in one, like a part 1 and a part 2. You really think you can bang that? I mean, it could have been a 4-hour-long Marvel movie. They're not above it. You know what I mean?
Or it could have been a 8-episode Marvel show.
Yeah, but those are terrible.
I'm just saying it could be.
Yeah, it could be. And Ahsoka season 2 could be really good. But anyways, the third topic of the evening. There he goes. I roll him. Third topic, sticking on comics, but we're gonna switch. We're gonna switch it over to the villain side of things. Saw a story that said Sony Pictures is cracking down on the, what were we calling it? The villain verse or the
I was calling
Venomverse?
it the Sony villain verse.
Sony villain verse, right? That win, lose, or draw with Craven, which incidentally is not looking like it's going to do so well in terms of pre-ticket sales, and it's going to bomb. And a lot of people did not enjoy the first 8 minutes that were on YouTube last week. I don't know, but they're shutting the whole thing down. The Sinister Six, done. That's over. Not getting it.
Because they're not going to release Spider-Man to do his own movie in Sony anymore. He's always going to be part of the MCU going forward, unless it's the Spiderverse animated movie. I think that's the only way they're going to use Spider-Man anymore. So there's no sense of building a Sinister Six if there's no Spider-Man.
Yeah, but and again, dude, it slays me, right? That when we look at writers' rooms, right? Very famously, Star Wars had the writers' room that had the white message board up on it with all like the brainstorming ideas, and it was like dinosaurs, justice, no guns, no war, and Jedi and X-Wings. Like it had everything, right? They have writers' rooms for everything. We saw the one for She-Hulk. We shouldn't have, but we did. Okay. They couldn't have got a writers' room together here at Sony with all their valuations in the trillions. Like it's high. I mean, it's a lot, right? And they couldn't have put a bunch of professional writers together and then brought in a few nerds for the day to just be like, and then pick their brains and be like, hey, what if we do 6 movies that are all about the bad guys being anti-hero good guys? No, Spider-Man's not going to be in any of them. And then we're going to do a big team up at the movie, like Avengers, but with bad guys. And then we'll have Spider-Man come in and they'll defeat him or something. Like he'll be the Thanos to the Sinister Six. Like, how does that work? How do they not see that?
Yeah, I mean, you've been building up all these secondary characters. Like Craven, he was part of the Sinister Six, but he was never really a big Spider-Man villain. He had like a 3 comic book run, and then he was spotted throughout the rest of the Spider-Man comic books. Then you have Madam Web, who wasn't really a villain. She's just trying to keep the timelines together. And then you had Venom, which was a great Spider-Man villain, but you're going with his San Francisco storyline, where after he was done fighting Spider-Man and was actually trying to get his life right. But then they rewrote it and put it in San Francisco to start when he actually started in New York with Spider-Man wearing the symbiote.
This is what I'm talking about, man. I just said this like 10 minutes ago, right? They skip over all that foundational, like level 1 stuff to get somewhere over here. Like they built the extension of the house before they built the house, right? Because I could see where they have some interest in utilizing some of these villains, but a lot of these guys can't carry a movie because they're the effing villains, and you can't have them be the protagonist in a movie about superhero. People expect the superhero experience, right? That means you have to take somebody like Craven, who's, is he a genetically enhanced? Is that his thing? Or was it like a chemical? I don't remember what it was.
He was supposed to be the world's greatest hunter.
Greatest hunter, right? I thought there was a serum or something. There's always something. Maybe that's just a modern invention. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat. It could be some
weird tree climbing with a spider that had the most worst dubbed over speech ever.
That was awesome. That was so awesome though. But they make him like he's in this movie. Like, well, what's his angle now? Like, he's hunting nothing. Like he's the Punisher. He's just going after organized crime or something. Like
no, in this one, like he's supposed to be stopping poaching.
Oh, right, poaching. I'm like, okay,
yep,
but poaching. That's not. I don't remember that being a Craven thing. I remember him wanting to hunt the Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was his thing. He's like, he had all of his trophies, and he's like, no, I have a spot for the Spider-Man. I'm going to hunt this animal.
So like let's do a quick little like reverse free writing pitch thing that we do, right? So if we had to pitch to like the execs at Sony while like Electro needed a movie, like or the Scorpion or Rhino. Like, how do these guys have the balls to walk in there and be like, here's the idea? Like, you can't. But they did.
They keep trying to do the Sinister Six. Like, you remember them in the emo Spider-Man with Anthony Darfield. Like, when they had him, they tried to build the Sinister Six, because you go in there and you had Rhino in like the robot suit, and then the Green Goblin becoming, and then they had the scene where they're walking through Norman's palace. And
they had the Scorpion suit. They had all their.
They had the Scorpion suit. They had the wings for Vulture. You had the Doc Ock's arms.
Yep.
So they were building towards a Sinister Six showdown, but it never got a third movie.
Yeah, and rightly so, because again, like, how do you do a Doc Ock movie? How do you do a Vulture movie? Like,
Spider-Man 2
D-bags.
Was a perfect Doc Ock movie,
right? And he was the bad guy.
Who had he has the perfect villain background, whereas like him and the main hero were friends at one point, and then they become arch nemesis, like Professor X and Magneto, best friends at one point, but then a difference of opinions what drove them into different directions.
I mean, that was one of my favorite parts of again, you're talking about ultimate setups and payoffs. This one, unforeseen. You get that perfect casting and that interaction, that chemistry between Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2. And then when Spider-Man No Way Home comes around at the end of that movie, when Doc Ock comes out of the funk, they cue the original music from Spider-Man 2. And he says, Peter, you're all grown up. How have you been? Or what have you been up to? And Tobey Maguire says, just trying to do better. And I'm like, dude, that's like a 25-year-old callback. That's like Steph Curry hitting consistently from 45 feet. You know what I mean? Like, that's that's a nail. Like, that's dead on exactly the right way you write superhero shits. It's the student growing up in front of the mentor and then saving him. That's awesome. That's superhero shit. I'm down for that. I'll never not be down for that. But then, you can't do that with a villain-centric movie. You can't.
And then you have the whole Superior Spider-Man run where Doc Ock and Peter Parker switch consciousness. And Peter Parker dies in Doc Ock's old body, and Doc Ock becomes the new Spider-Man.
Right. See, that's a little bit of interesting thing they could do, but I wonder then if they run into all that nonsense where would the general audience get what happened here? That's always the criticism of that kind of high concept stuff.
I think they would have to over-explain it.
They probably would. They probably would.
Yeah, they'd have to over-explain it way too much about the transfer of consciousness.
Can we get that comment up real quick? I saw there it is. Elizabeth, hey, have you all talked about the Warhammer news yet? We did. We opened with it, but if you wanted a 5-second recap, it was, we're very happy for Henry Cavill getting the project off the ground and exerting some executive control. It looks like Games Workshop stuck to their guns and averted the rights reversion issue, which I guess was going down on Christmas or something. King's Day was at the end of the month.
The 22nd. The 22nd.
It was right before Christmas. They were right up almost into the 11th hour. We called it 9:30. So they were probably on brunch, maybe coming up on 11sies. We go. They had not quite the second breakfast, but we're stoked for them because we're big fans of Cavill here on the channel. Thank you for asking. We appreciate that.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, definitely. We will be here. We'll be here all night. Try the beef or the veal or however that joke goes. That's RIP Sony Venomverse, Villainverse. Dude, I haven't even seen the last two Venom movies. I didn't feel too compelled to see them. I didn't find anything really interesting in it. Morbius was a dumpster fire. So I mean,
and then they ended the villain of Venom with the final dance. So that whole story arc is done now. And the second one had the worst setup and payoff ever, with him getting pulled into the MCU for one cutscene where he leaves a little bit of a symbiote behind.
I don't even know how that works. If everything from one universe goes, how does it go? I
think Brock should have had a perfect entry into the MCU and being Venom to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I think that would have been a great interaction between the two of them.
Could have been, and it's not like Tom Hardy can't handle his way around around a role to play. Like, imagine if switching universes does something to the symbiote, reverts it to a more savage form, and we get legit Venom.
Yeah.
Like real Venom, not anti-hero Venom, not Agent Venom, not Tom Hardy with the funny voice Venom. Like no. I mean like Venom. Like Venom before Carnage became Venom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the Venom that the spider sense didn't detect. Because that was one of the big ones, because Venom pushed him in front of a train and he's like, why did my spider sense go off?
Yeah, no, Venom pretty dope in his true form. So we're definitely, I'm not sad to see the verse go. I know you've got a soft spot for some of the crappier movies in their lineup. So
I liked the Venom. Morbius was Morbius. It's Morbius time.
Morbin time. Get it right.
Morbin time. Okay. And then I think Craven could be good, but Madam Web was a straight dumpster fire. And the thing is, I think the person who plays Craven is 3 superheroes in now, and I think his best one was his first one when he played Kick-Ass.
Yeah, dude, true. He's in something coming up too that I just heard, and I can't remember what it was. That's Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's who that is, right? Is that the actor? Yeah, he's in something. I just caught the headline today, but I didn't get a chance to add it to the list. Luckily, it was a known-ish IP. So it looked like something maybe that he's still going to track. Career's going to track. Okay. Dude, will you see Craven? Will you get around to that, or are the holidays just going to put it out of watch range until it hits streaming?
I'll wait till it hits streaming. It's not a must see.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. Oh well, R.I.P. Villainverse. Who cares? They're done. What do we got? Okay, this is going to be a quick one because this is more like, I love that. I sometimes forget that Hollywood folks, directors, actors, whatever, they are real people at the end of the day. So they have real people emotions. They have real people egos, just inflated. But the Mangold there, the director of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery, still pretty butthurt that people didn't like the movie. They're like, dude, it's been a year. Why are you still talking about this in interviews?
Why are you bringing up old stuff, man?
Well, like it was in the context of an interview. To be fair to him, it wasn't like he just sat up at the keyboard one night at 3 and was like, "Oh, fuck all you guys! You didn't like my vision for Indiana Jones and this and that." Like he's being interviewed and giving like complex and like his nuanced opinion on why he did Indy the way he did. I know you like the movie more than I did. I did not enjoy Indy 5 at all, like not remotely. The box office tally was not good. I think critical reception, of course, was high, but audience reception was mid to low. So I think the consensus was not a strong entry, not Crystal Skull.
I still think it's better than Crystal Skull.
What I just said, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll still say there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. I'm good with saying there's a trilogy. But the reason I wanted to throw this topic on the list, it's not just to dunk on James Mangold and for him being exposed kind of as a bit of a baby when the initial controversies around the movie came out, and he was notoriously going after large YouTube channels and Twitter folks for just pointing out, where can this movie really go? Harrison Ford's 97 years old. He's got orthopedic injuries every 5 seconds. He's crashed 3 planes. He's not exactly in the best shape. Like, what's the angle? Like, Mangold wants to come back and argue, oh, that's an ageist take. It's perfectly that's not going to be a concern. The stunts are going to be great. All the usual defensive stuff you do. But like this guy right now answering, we didn't know how else we could do the Indy story except to show him as an elderly man at the end of his career, end of his life stage. We didn't know how to do him differently. And we didn't know that we could do a recast or we didn't want a recast. So the question's a 2-parter. Number one, why couldn't they have just told a story that they acted in and didn't have their character look like them in real life, being 98 years old? And then, follow-up question to that, why is Indiana Jones bulletproof and unrecastable outside of Harrison Ford saying no, as if he could control that?
I don't think Harrison Ford has that control over him. I know he's for a while wanted a lot of his legacy characters killed off, so he doesn't have to worry about doing those franchises anymore. But they could have still used Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones as old, just like I just said for Old Man Rogers. You put him in a mentoring role, and you have him going along helping someone else become the next great archaeologist. He takes over the curator. Yeah, the museum. So you have him take over.
I saw that.
Oh.
Thank you. You have him take over.
Yeah, so you have him take over the museum. Brody, that's who it was. I was trying to think of his
Oh
name.
yeah,
Brody. He
the head
becomes
of
the
not the
new
museum.
Brody.
That's right. He was the head of the museum, the college, or whichever it was.
Yeah,
the
at the
university.
college. He takes
Yep.
over that role. He doesn't have to retire. He moves into that role. And then he has a young guy he sees himself as, and he goes into that mentoring role. Or it could be a young girl if you want to go a young girl. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they did that.
And you just have him in that mentoring role, and you let the story be about the next Indiana whoever going on an archaeological adventure.
See,
simple.
You can do that, and that is simple. The trouble is these jackasses think that every guy in that role is a self-loathing, miserable wallflower has-been TLJ style. I don't trust this current crop of folks in the creative capacities at Lucasfilms to tell your version of Indiana Jones, 107 years old, where he's still kind of sharp. He's still teaching class. He's catching kids passing notes. He's still fairly attractive for being 205 or however old he is. They don't know how to tell that version where he's still calm, cool, and collected, and he can still throw fists and crack a whip. He doesn't need to swing from it anymore because he's 500. We don't need to do that. But you can still let him be Indiana Jones in your version, which is a good version. I agree. And it looked like they were setting that up with Mutt. They looked like they were setting that up.
And you could even have him as that cranky old man who lost his greatest years are all behind him. He could be the reluctant mentor, that he has to be convinced that he's still Indiana Jones, and that's who I need is that man. And that's when you bring that that fire back into him, but he has to pass the torch to the next set of adventurers.
I love the sound of that. I just think that every time they set themselves up to write that character, they always make him the butt of the joke on the way instead of just being somebody that's still just near the top of his game, but doesn't want to give up being the top dog. You know what I mean? That he has to be a dumpster fire of a human being and it has to be coddled and pumped back into being who he used to be. I don't want that at all. I want your version where it's he sees the up and comer, they butt heads, but they have to work collectively together to solve a problem that each of their unique experiences or disciplines allows them to collaborate on.
And they become friends as they move closer, as they see their strengths and they go off of each other.
Exactly. I think that's one way to go. I think now here, let me give you my pitch then. I think we should use the technology that's been improving year over year. I think that if they don't want to do the recast, right? If they don't want to bring in a Troy Baker or a Jim Krasinski or somebody that looks like they're a 50-year-old indie and then keep that character locked into 40-year-old indie, because those guys are in shape. They can pass for lower, shave them up a little bit here or there, right? Do that. Or you go, like I was saying with the technology, AI this thing. Paint his face over, the tech's getting better over and over. We just saw that Star Trek thing, that Unification short film where they de-aged Shatner, who showed up and shot for a day. They did a 30-year-old version of Kirk. They did a 50-year-old version, then they did his present day old man Kirk at 3 different points, and they had to literally unify in the short film. The tech is creepy, dude. It's less and less uncanny valley by the month, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to do Indiana Jones forever, pulp serial fiction that he's based on, like a comic book, a monthly run, go get any dude that's in shape that's 30. You know what I mean? They can move and throw a punch, can do some stunt work, can be thrown over a table, because Indy's going to get thrown over a table. He is the butt of a joke sometimes. That's the charm of it, is he does take a punch in every movie, right? You go hire some shredded dude that can go in the desert and sweat through a shirt and look okay, and just put effing Harrison Ford's face over it, dude. We can do it. If he signs over the right, let him do it. Pay him. Fucking pay him whatever he wants. And then we can have Indy in doing indie stuff.
So I have another pitch for you. If you want to go younger, newer,
I think that's the way to go. Treat him like Bond. Treat him like Bond. He's American Bond.
I mean, even look at Batman. Batman ages with the age of the time without changing who he is. But I'm thinking, what if you make it modern day and you have an archaeological student who's reading the adventures of Indiana Jones, and then they go to the tomb and there's another adventure that he has, he was researching something and they find it somehow. And then this one goes on the last Indiana Jones adventure to finish it for a passed away Indiana Jones.
That's super meta. I'm not. I like it. I don't like it, but I like it because if he's reading a comic based on indie, like,
Not a
who's
comic.
making
He's
it?
doing the research.
Oh,
Like,
I think you said
he's reading.
I
No,
heard
no, he's
comic, my bad.
no, he's reading his research
Journal.
and, like,
Okay,
his journal,
I gotcha.
journal and like
So-
all of like his historical documents that are
So kind of like how Indy had
his.
his dad's journal in Last Crusade and was like following the. All right, I'd be down for that, but I still, you know what I would kill for in that movie then? I would want Harrison Ford to show up cameo style at the end or something. Like I would like that end cap where he's like, oh, you only had half the book. Here's the other half, kid. And he gives him literally the other half of the book. Like I'd be down for that. Like you get a little gruff or something. It'd be even better. And this is what they should have done. And everything, everywhere, all at once proved it. You bring back Short Round.
Oh,
He's hot right now. You could have thrown a cameo in there, like a little teaser in the stinger. You didn't need to reshoot the movie for a 7th time. You could have done it, but you didn't. But imagine if the movie was just Short Round, no kids, no wife, but he's doing the treasure hunter thing, and he gets to meet Indy one more time at the end. Dope. Elizabeth, that would be a great way to segue into a new character and passing on the torch. So that's what we're talking about. We're not opposed to change. We're not opposed to things moving on, but they need to be respectful to everything that came before. Everything that came before needs to be respected along that way. And it just can't be a stepping stone to whatever idiot companies think the market research is telling them needs to be today. You know, and then everybody goes and sees this movie. They can cast all the different kinds of folks that they want. They can get all the boxes checked. They can give everybody a good story and something to like clap about at the end. Ain't nobody clapped at the end of Dial a Douche Nozzle when I walked out the theater. That did not happen. I assure you that did not happen at my show. But I would like to see that.
I think I saw someone leave early, actually.
It was me.
Show.
It was me. I called you. I said, dude, I'm leaving early. I waved you on the way out the door. All right, dude. We'll see what happens with that indie going forward. We do got the Tomb Raider show coming up. That's kind of like indie with the Phoebe Waller-Bridge involvement. We'll see how that goes. That's as close as we're going to get to more indie, I think.
Recasting Angelina Jolie as Laura Croft.
Yeah, and they're casting Sophie Turner to do that, the most boring character from Game of Thrones. Thanks, everybody. Just saying, Haley Atwell's out there. She's literally out there. Just throwing, whatever. Call me, guys. I'll get in touch with her. I'll take that one for the team. All right, next topic. Another quick one, because it's not out in the States yet. I think the early release is tomorrow. War of the Rohirrim.
I think they did the London premiere either last night or the night before.
So it came out wherever it came out in a few different places. Only earned $2 million. All right, people citing
it is a limited release right now. It's not a nationwide release. So
fair. But it is an animated film, so I think that automatically cuts out folks that aren't into that.
Yes.
From what I've heard from some of the early reviews, animation quality spotty in some places, really badass in others. And then, of course, story concerns. And we've talked about those briefly. We'll just recap that real quick. It's the story about a character who didn't have a name in the Silmarillion, and she was in a paragraph. They wrote a whole movie about her, and they absorbed other things that other people did to create this character. I suspect this movie was in its design phase around Ghostbusters Answer the Call, and it's just been sat on in development hell, and now it's past its sell by. You know what I mean? I think this is going to be a product of 5 years ago. I hope I'm wrong, because this was on both of our lists of 2024. Like, all right, let's go check this out.
Because I know Peter Jackson was involved in this.
Yep. That's a check. That's
a lot of the original cast was involved with this too, from the live action Lord of the Rings movies. They were all at the premiere who were still alive at the London premiere. So I think that was pretty cool to have them all there. I saw the pictures. I saw a couple quick things about it on reels and stuff about them being there ready for another Lord of the Rings. But I have seen where people are saying, oh, it's an animated Lord of the Rings. I'm out. I want to see another live action.
Right. And they're queuing that up, of course, that's in the works, but not like Rings of Power season 3. I mean, that's confirmed, but that's going to have half of the audience that was left over from season 2 and 1. But yeah, the animated thing, it's not for everybody. And it's not like all animation looks like Shrek or looks like Coco Melon or Baby Shark or anything like that. Like there's anime out. There's an entire not adult, you know what I mean? There's like a grown-up version of anime that sells appropriately rated 17 plus material for like movies of blood and guts, sex scenes, adult themes, all that stuff. War for the Rohirrim, I think it just doesn't, because it's not anime per se. Like it's not from Japan. it doesn't have that Western audience here with that built-in IP to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
You know,
not,
there are a
and
lot
Star
of
Wars I
anime
think wouldn't work
fans.
either, you know.
There's a lot of anime fans here in the United States.
Loads.
It has a huge following.
It's
So
dude, it's outselling everything on the manga side.
I mean, look at I think it hasn't got enough looked is the Terminator Zero, who's kind of set in that type of animation style, which I believe if it got more publicity, that it would also take off in that anime world.
And we've said before, like your pitch to me was to do Mistborn, you know, in animation, because it just allows you to flex the creative muscle story that Sanderson provided into letting you do all of the out of the way out there spell effects that magic looks like in his created world. So I don't see why that wouldn't apply to something like Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah,
you know? But like you said, people just aren't.
Yeah, I 100% believe that animation has a more dynamic view when it comes to like magic and fantasy and stuff like that. That would cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get done. With visual effects and with animation, you're already going to spend it on the effects. So why not just, make it just more compelling, because you could put all the movie's budget into doing it.
Yeah, I think you're dead on right on that. I think that it sounds good on paper to do. Let's take a poke at doing an animated Lord of the Rings, but I wonder if maybe those circles on the Venn diagram didn't overlap with that big enough chunk in the middle to make this a thing that's going to be successful, publicity or no. I think that Tolkien itself it's a complicated read. The movies appeal to plenty of people in our age demographic and a little bit younger. But the books, those are a tough sell on anybody that's not diehard fantasy.
And the Silmarillion's even more so, because there's so much in it. As someone did a movie poster, a fake movie poster called The Silmarillion, directed by Peter Jackson, they're like, you couldn't do that. That's like making one motion picture of the entire Bible.
Right. And because it's about as long, you know, that's the thing. The Silmarillion,
and there's a whole bunch of little books in it too, because the Bible isn't one book; it's 66 books.
Right.
So,
and the Silmarillion has all that, say that there's footnotes, there's letters from the professor that he wrote, that all those things would need to be taken into account, because all that stuff is considered canon by literally everybody except the assholes at Amazon and Rings of Power. You know what I mean? They're the only ones that don't get it.
That's because canon's made up and the points don't matter.
Canon is in fact made up, and their points will always matter in canon. They don't matter anywhere else. It's the rules that don't matter. The rules don't matter. So let me ask you this then. Controversy aside about quality of animation, story concerns, will you be getting out to War of the Rohirrim during the holiday season?
I think I might try to go see this one in theaters. I think it's one of the ones I want to see. So
yeah, we'll put a pin in that thing, because if you go, I'll go, because I was just going to pump that to streaming also, but that could be a good team up review. So let's dip, because we got two more, and I think they're both kind of quick. I think this will carry us nicely. So another guy that's spouting off in articles and interviews and rumors is George R.R. Martin admitting that he may not finish the book. Right? May not finish it. And Patrick Rothfuss is online too. He's agreeing. Like, I'm like, come on. Like, dude, I get it, man. I've made the age jokes for India. I'm going to go back to the well one more time. George R.R. Martin is 12,000 years old, right? He's not in great health, dude. He got 100
take
pounds
care of himself.
My man's got 100 pounds on me and has probably had at least one triple bypass that we're not privy to.
I think he's a bypass of his bypass.
They can do that. You can absolutely re-bypass a bypass. It can be done. Of course, you just bypass the compressor. Ray taught us that. I hate that I even made that joke. So I don't even really care that he may have been serious, may not have been serious. The fact that he said it at all is concerning. I'm wondering if we're finally just going to get that tacit admission in like the next year that he's just out. And I wanted to know, it's another two-parter for you, right? Part one, do you think he's out because Game of Thrones, the show, ended so poorly for so many people that if he finishes the book, it'll expose that ending was always his plan and he just doesn't want to hear it? What do you think of that as a conspiracy, but not really? It's kind of out there, but what do you think?
Well, we all know that the producers of Game of Thrones did have a sit down with George R. R. Martin, and he did release a lot of his secrets that haven't been written yet. That he was going to do, like the Hodor moment.
Yep.
And So maybe that's it. But he did say that they got some points right, but he was going to do it different. Like he had a different way of getting there.
All right, so it's probably not that then that he's worried about like the public reception of it just being a mimic of the show. Do you think he's just afraid that nothing he does will be good enough because fans and notorious are to please? What do you think?
I think he's going to go with the George Lucas view of why he wasn't going to do a sequel trilogy. He wasn't going to spend the last 10 years of his life making Star Wars movies. I think George R. R. Martin's getting to that point where he's just, I'm not going to spend the last couple years of my life writing these books.
Yeah, but you know, that's kind of an ass chapper though, right? Like, because this dude's, you know, heavily involved in making House of the Dragon. He's written the other accessory books that go along in that world. He wrote the story, I believe, to Elden Ring. You know, the game that came out a couple of years ago. Like that
he
was
was
all
one of the
inspired by his
contributed
work.
writing.
Right. So I mean, so my man's out there and doing work. I'm thinking like and I mean this in all seriousness as a medical professional, barring any possible mental health illness like dementia, something like that makes it actually hard for him to have the cognitive function to write something as complex as Game of Thrones. Do you think it's possible that he's just at the point where he doesn't remember where he is, what he's doing within these books? There are so many characters and named locations, and he just doesn't know how to tie it all back to something normal or cohesive.
He painted with too broad of a brush to actually tie it up in a nice tight bow where it'd be digestible and well received by his audience.
Possibility, but then I've seen that speculation out there. We know that, you know, your other favorite book series, Wheel of Time, was very famously completed after the original author's death by another absolute master of the craft, right? Somebody you and I both like a lot. Brandon Sanderson showed up to write the end of Wheel of Time. Now, I know their writing styles are widely different. I'm sure Brandon Sanderson could absolutely technically write the last book and a half of Game of Thrones, but I don't think his outlook on life lends itself to the grimdark that is Game of Thrones.
No, I don't think.
I don't know if style-wise it would
be the right
one. What about Joel Abercrombie?
I could see someone coming in and giving it the Sanders touch like he did to Robert Jordan, because if you don't know, Robert Jordan passed away from blood cancer. Right. He passed away right as he was finishing the 10th book. But the one thing that Sanderson said when he was chosen by the widow after she read Mistborn and was like, this is the guy I want to finish this, and brought him in. And he said when he read the notes, the books were pretty much already written. He just had to put them into words. And
you just had to string it.
But she wanted him to do one more book. And after he read everything in the notes, he's like, I can't do this in one book. I have to do it in, I think he said 4.
Of course he did. And then that son of a bitch wrote 3 of them during the pandemic because of course he did. We should link that video. That shit's hilarious. I wrote another one.
And I wrote another one.
Good shit. He had like 7 of them at the end of that. That was good stuff.
But like, they said when he wrote the last one, they said that when the editor read it, he thought Robert Jordan actually wrote it because he captured his voice so well in that last book that it was like Robert Jordan's notes were that thorough that he was able to channel his voice into that final book.
Well, and also that Sanderson was a talented enough cat to be able to know that he had to write through the prism of Robert Jordan, and that he couldn't just take the notes, thorough that they may be, and then literally use his own voice instead of Jordan's voice to finish off something that has had so many fans for so many decades.
And that's the one thing I did like. They said in an interview, they asked him, will there be any more Wheel of Time books? He's like, no, Wheel of Time's not mine. It was lent to me. I finished it, and then I gave it back. And that's where it needs to stay. It's not my work.
Dude, his outlook on that is everything wrong with current day Star Wars outlook on that property. His outlook on the respect and the reverence for something that, you know, damn well Sanderson read them all anyway. Yeah. He had probably read that series at least 4 times in his dorker younger years, without a doubt. So they brought in somebody that had a passion and a talent, merged the two, and then expressed it through a respectful lens, and you got solid books that wrapped up a series. And I don't remember people complaining, so he couldn't have done that bad a job. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So you were talking about how fast Sanderson writes. There was a panel that had like Joe Abercrombie, it had Rothfuss on there, it had Sanderson, and there was like 2 other authors on there. Thank God it wasn't Terry Goodkind because I can't stand him as a person. But they asked him a question, like, would you, and the question was, and they asked the panel, who on this will have a question for someone else on the panel? And Rothfuss leaned up, looked over at Sanderson, and like, could you stop writing so fast?
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, Rothfuss is a fantasy author in that same boat as Martin, where he got, 2 books into a series that a lot of people liked.
Yep.
He's a much younger man than George R.R. Martin. Kind of a heavier dude and not all that healthy either, though, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
But again, he's pumped the brakes on. So I mean, my last half of that question before we get to our last quick topic is, I hate to be that guy, but I gotta be that guy. These authors don't owe us anything, right? Or do they kind of, because they sold me the beginning of something? Is there not like a spiritual's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like, is there not like a implied contract here?
What I say is that they don't owe us anything, but they're breaking the promise they gave us.
There you go. And that's probably the more fair way to say it. Obviously, we're not going to be doing refunds and returns because this guy didn't write a book like 13 years later. But it's like, I remember at one point when Martin was talking about, no, I'm never going to go the ghostwriter route. I'm like, dude, why the fuck not? Like, honestly, you pick the person. You could pick whoever you want, George. You could pick the most talented person on the planet and be like, hey, here's the notes. Do whatever you want. Here's what I'd like to see happen. And then just let it out there for those of us that want to know how that world ends. We're a book and a half away. A lot of people don't remember that.
Yeah, like, get a stenographer at least. Sit there and dictate the book and let someone else type it out.
But I wonder if that might be just too much work for this dude, because he'll be at that point where he's like, I have no idea where Arya is right now. So I'm saying, like, dude, you haven't written shit in 12 years. Like, anybody can write 500 pages or 1,000 pages in a decade. It's absolutely possible for any human being to do that. It might not be very good, but anybody can do it. Throw it all out, hire a ghostwriter, give him the outline, the storyboards, your notes, and be like, this is the story that needs to be in this book. After that, these are the ideas I had to wrap up the whole thing in Dream of Spring, and I'm out. Go do whatever.
You go with the whole Tom Clancy route, where they actually have the other author's name on there, but it's a Tom Clancy novel.
100%. But this guy's his ego is that big. Dude, get over yourself, dude. That's why Tolkien's king. But anyway.
Well, I think he's still waiting for the Jets to win the Super Bowl, and it's been 14 years since they made the playoffs. So
don't hold your breath, because Jets suck. Anyway, last topic, 3 minutes. We can do this. So we'll go over a little bit. No big deal. So speaking of fantasy series, you might have heard, I think we mentioned it a while ago, that the Chronicles of Narnia is up for a revival. You're a big fan of C.S. Lewis, read the Chronicles of Narnia books. I'm sure we all have. It's been a while, but I do have them on the shelf behind that other monitor, their little box set. I'm going to probably crack into those as I usually do around Christmas. I at least try to get the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in every couple of years anyway. But it's up for revival. At first, it was going to be a movie. Like, they were going to bang out the first one. They didn't disclose if it was going to be The Magician's Nephew, which is chronologically the first thing in that box set, or if they were going to do the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
The classic starting point.
The classic starter from the old BBC cartoon, which is still very near and dear to my heart. I love that cartoon. Love that movie. Not a movie anymore. Apparently, series on Netflix, and Greta Gerwig, famous director, did Barbie last year to much aplomb and acclaim.
Made tons of money.
Made a butt ton of money, dude. I saw it. I thought it was okay for what it was. I got a review. You guys go check that out. But the article I was reading said that, Greta Gerwig has like an interesting take on it. She grew up and they all say this until they don't. I grew up in a Christian household, so I'm familiar with the symbology and the this and the that. But she's talking about putting like the modern spin on it. And I'm like, do we really need to see Susan Pevensey as like a college like whore bag with an OnlyFans channel? Like, does that need to be a thing? Is that the modern take I need on Chronicles of Narnia? Like, can we just not leave shit alone?
But by modern take, it could be taken, instead of going to World War II again, where it was set.
Yeah,
you could move it to the Afghan-Iraq war. Sure.
But like, that's even never what the modern take is. The modern take means updated for the modern audience. It doesn't mean the story's modern necessarily, but it could be. I mean, and that would be. And listen, if they adapted it that way, that change falls in line. It's a story that somebody wrote inspired by their dad that went to war and in a different theater. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
The one thing I don't want, and you see it in so many movies, especially when there's time travel or dimensional travel. Why is my cell phone working? But and you see a Taco Bell that still has a bell on it. Oh, why is my cell phone working? Because they don't have cell towers yet. Come on, put 2 and 2 together.
That's what I mean, man. I don't think there's any version of this that sounds good to me when I look at the things that she said and I juxtapose it with what I know about like the Hollywood system. Like when they made Chronicles of Narnia, there wasn't like an outright war on, right-leaning people or, or religious people in movies or religious themes necessarily of any denomination in movies. But how do you do the Narnia thing without Aslan as the Christ figure? Like, how does that even work? How do you tell that story without the resurrection part? Like, you can only tell that if you have reverence for the material, even if you're not practicing of that faith. Like, I wouldn't tell a story based in Judaism or in Islam and disrespect it out of hand. Like, who the hell am I? But you just know modern Hollywood is aching to take a poke at that because Christianity is the only religion you can take a poke at in mass media, mass entertainment. So I just don't see how this goes well, but there's not really any news. I'm not even sure this is in production or been, it might not even be official. I don't even know. It might just still be in that rumor mill stage, but enough articles have come out that attach her name to it that I think it's something she wants to do. And the more somebody wants to do something, that's when you get concerning when you're suspicious of their motives, I would say.
Yeah, I think the mistake when they did the movies is that they waited too long in between the movies and the kids kind of aged out of the role.
Dude, 2 of them aged out between the first 2 films. By the 3rd film, it was over. Like the only kid that was borderline getting back into Narnia was Lucy. And she was like 19 and like a foot and a half taller than the other kid in the movie, which is weird. Like, nah, dude, Lucy's like in a freshman in college now. That shit don't work. Like you told Susan she couldn't come back when she was 13 years old because she wore lipstick one time. You're not letting Lucy back at 19. That shit ain't happening. But I don't know. I guess that'll be a wait and see. Netflix's track record with fantasy shows isn't the greatest for me. I didn't enjoy. Didn't they do His Dark Elements? Oh no, that was Amazon.
That was HBO.
That was HBO. I thought that was
His
Amazon.
Dark Matter.
His Dark Matter. Sorry. Yep. So I'm not sure, but I liked Wednesday. I like Stranger Things on Netflix. One Piece, they did okay. So their series they're more consistently good than bad. So I mean, maybe they sort out some details for Greta and get something done that isn't completely offensive to the IP. I don't know.
It's like HBO is your highest rated. Amazon Prime is your hit and miss, and Netflix it's good but not great.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Except for like a couple, like I said, they had absolute bangers, and then they're like One Piece that really blow you away. And Stranger Things is a mixed bag within itself, season to season. And One Piece is good. And Wednesday I thought was really solid.
Well, by the time they finish Stranger Things, I think the kids are going to be 35 out there playing high school kids.
Dude, kids are divorced, second houses, someone's in rehab. It's going to be very strange things.
It's going to be going from Stranger Things to Haunting on Hill House, which is they're all ghosts in the house.
Right. When we show up to season 4 and like Lucas and Nancy have a kid together or some weird arrangement that they made in the 15 years between seasons, it'd be like, what is this show? What's going on here? But dude, I told you we could do it. We got through all the topics. We're only like 3 minutes over. I thought we covered everything quite nicely tonight. Very well done. Big round of applause for everybody that helped King Z stay on topic. Sometimes he rambles and he goes off the script, which is embarrassing and frustrating, but we let it happen. But anyways, dude, I got nothing else. If you want to give everybody the profound goodbye that you're so good at, we can get out of here.
Well, see ya.